I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Stop agreeing with yourself. Stop agreeing with yourself.
Hello and welcome to Glass Half Full Reviews, where a sequel is just a friend you haven't met yet. And today I'm going to be reviewing 22 Jump Street. So 22 Jump Street, of course, is the follow-up to the smash comedy of, I don't remember, 21 Jump Street, which starred Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, plus a host of other colorful characters, as essentially a revamp of the old Johnny Depp, etc. I never saw it 80s television show about a bunch of undercover cops who go to high school or whatever to try to track down drug dealers. Now, it was directed by the dream team of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who have just, they have just such an amazing record. They did the cult classic perfection of a show, Clone High, which is just superb. 100% amazing. They did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is a really nice kids movie. Obviously, the first 21 Jump Street was just very funny. It was just really well done. And the other movie they did, what was it? What was the other movie? Oh, that's right. The Lego Movie, which was also amazing. So I went into this thinking, okay, well, maybe it won't be amazing. Maybe it'll only be funny. I knew it would be funny because, I trust these guys. Now, was it better than the original? I think that is the question I should ask right away. The answer is, in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. I really like the original a lot, and I was able to rewatch it and keep enjoying it. I feel like I probably laughed a little bit harder at the first one than the second one, but the second one, it's very close. It does such a great job of subverting sequel expectations. I don't even want to give away a lot of the great jokes they have, but essentially it's the guys come back, it's Schmidt and Janko, Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum coming back again, and I really just sort of appreciate what they did. So essentially they kind of set it up in the last movie where they said, okay, your guys are going to go to college, and essentially that is what happens after a couple of interesting things at the beginning, and they're tracking down a new drug, and of course they make fun of how it seems like the same situation again, but they actually play into that a little bit. I don't think it's a perfect way of dealing with it, but I was so impressed by how smart they were about it. And I was also really impressed by the comedic performances of everybody in this movie. Ice Cube came back to play the captain, and he's just really good in these movies where he isn't playing a terribly written character. It's amazing. Who would have thunk it? Jonah Hill, of course, is just an impeccable comic performer, and he wrote a lot of this material, and he just really knows what he's doing. He really knows how to get a laugh out of things. Channing Tatum is great. He showed such a great comedic side in the first one, and he does it again. It's such a great to go back and forth between these two guys. And I found the most problematic part was probably that there wasn't quite enough of what I would think of as sort of the investigation mystery side of things. It was very simplistic, even more than the original. And that was the point, but I guess that part just wasn't as interesting. Of course, all the other stuff that they do with all the different interactions and characters, it works really well. I'm just remembering a few things. And, man, some of it is like, is he really hooking up with a college girl? That's a little skeevy, but, I guess I can't really blame him, and it's for his cover. I've heard some people complain about some of the gay jokes in this movie, and they're there, but it has a weirdly progressive take on things. I guess I can't really get into it without spoiling it, but I guess it tries to do the whole have your cake and eat it too thing. I don't think it quite pulls it off. I think it gets really close, but not quite. I don't know that it's even possible to do that kind of thing, to tell jokes, but also tell jokes about those jokes. That just might not be possible. We've seen people like, Dave Chappelle do things similar to that kind of thing. I don't even think he always did it, but it's hard. Well, I'm certainly not going to try that. I know that much. Another thing I want to say is you need to stay through the end credits of this movie. I may have laughed more through the end credits than I did through the movie. And I didn't not laugh in the movie either. They were just really good. I don't want to say a single thing about these credits, because we'll spoil how awesome they are. You have to see these credits if you haven't already. Now, those of you who've already seen this movie might be going back to see it again. I don't know, I think I'll probably see it again, too. I mean, this movie was very funny. It just worked really well. I think that's enough superlative, because I'm just talking too kindly about this movie. So, how does it suck? It doesn't, but I already kind of mentioned some of my issues with it. I did like some of the guys. It was nice to see my old buddy Peter Stormare come back again. Just plays villains and everything, and, you know, he rarely gets a good movie, so it was nice to see that. All right, let's get into my 5-point breakdown.
5-point breakdown.
All right, number 1, the acting. And this is one of those things that's really tricky for a comedy. But the thing is that these guys are all seasoned actors, and all the new players, they all work very well. There is nothing in the way of a weak performance here. It's funny because Peter Stormare is probably the weakest performance, but he doesn't have that much to do, so it's okay. Everyone else is they're there. They're saying the funny lines, and they're saying them in a funny way. They are cutting it in a funny way. Everything works. The acting was just great. Just great. All right. Next up, the story. The story was okay. I mean, by its nature, it's a kind of a retread, and they kind of play on that, and they kind of touch into that, but it's not meant to be original. So I get that. I mean, it was interesting enough. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, like, oh, wow, that's an interesting way to do that. It was just the takes on it. Some of the, little twists were like, oh, okay, all right, fine. Nothing too amazing. It was fine. I think that's less of importance to this kind of movie. And that being said, though, it was definitely a fun movie. All right, number 3. How does it look? These guys are probably second only to Edgar Wright in terms of really knowing how to direct comedy well. Now, of course, you have like even more upper echelons like Coen Brothers, Tarantino, Spielberg types who get that kind of thing, but their movies aren't just comedy, so I don't really want to put them in that category because they certainly know how to do the comedic filming and editing just that looks really smart and really interesting. I don't think Edgar Wright has any kind of peers in any kind of comedy movies. But other than that, I mean, these guys, I was just so impressed by the way it flowed together. They have a real good sense of visual aesthetic and just making something seem funny just by the way they put it together, the way they use their footage, the way they do their camera angles, the cutting between things. It just works really well. I was very happy by that. All right, number 4, the feel. I left this movie, said, that was a great movie, and I still think it was a great movie. It was a good time. I had fun. I mean, what else is there to say? It was a fun movie. All right, number 5. So, what's the point? Doesn't matter. Hard to say. I mean, how many sequels really work at all close to the original? I mean, Mortal Kombat 2 was 1 billion times worse than Mortal Kombat 1, which really isn't such a great movie. I mean, Toy Story 2, yes, that's better. Terminator 2, I'd say equal. They're 2 different types of movies. They both work pretty well. And Gremlins 2 I liked a lot more than Gremlins 1. Yeah, it's hard to think of anything else. So, maybe it's going to send a message to studios that, hey, keep making sequels. Like they need that advice because they're going to do it anyway. Well, all right. Listen, this movie was great. It was so much fun. It was funny. It was great to see these guys again. I hope it does well because I love the creators of this movie. I want to see them bring that Clone High movie they talked about recently in interviews come life. Come on! Gandhi, Lincoln, the rest! We got to see that. Clone High was great. Ugh. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Do I recommend it? Of course! Unless, of course, you can't handle the R-rated stuff. Other than that, you got to see this movie. It's so funny. All right. Thanks for stopping by.